Welcome, Brooklyn Law School. Woo! I am Christina Mulligan, your Vice Dean and a professor here, and you are Brooklyn Law School's entering class of 2021. Woo! Those joining you this evening are your classmates, but also potentially your colleagues, your support group, your legal network, your mentor, and potentially your future spouse or partner. You are among an accomplished, diverse, and inspiring group of students who bring years of dedication, passion, and initiative to our community. In the coming years, you'll learn that your fellow students are your greatest assets here at Brooklyn Law School. Take the time to forge new connections, to challenge yourself intellectually, and to become immersed in the educational, legal, and cultural opportunities that will present themselves to you during your tenure here. The 2021 JD class is composed of 425 students who were selected from nearly 4,500 applicants from around the world. 394 of you have enrolled in the 3-year program, 31 of you in the extended 4-year program, and joining the incoming JD students are 14 new second-year students who have transferred to Brooklyn Law School. Our campus is proud to stand at the frontier of a broad global community. This year we welcome 9 new LLM students who come to us from 7 countries, including Turkey, Jamaica, Mexico, Colombia, and France. All of them hold law degrees in their home countries and have come here to study alongside the JD students. We also welcome 5 exchange students who will join us this fall from Germany, India, and Ireland. In the first year JD class alone, your birthplaces span 6 continents, 31 countries, and 35 US states. 80 of you, nearly 20% of the incoming class, are first-generation Americans. You speak 43 languages and dialects other than English, ranging from Vietnamese to German to Albanian. 48 of you speak at least 3 languages. I speak 1. 55 of you, before this year began, already resided at the center of the universe, otherwise known as Brooklyn. The class median age is 24. The youngest is 20, and the oldest is 52. For the student who is 20, remember that using a fake ID is a misdemeanor, and you will have to report it to the Character and Fitness Committee. Okay. No matter your age, though, we are always pleased to see students follow in the footsteps of family members who are graduates of Brooklyn Law School. Tonight, we welcome 37 such students, and with over 23,000 alumni, that's not surprising. All of you are here because we know you're prepared to excel academically, both in the classroom and in the field through clinics, externships, internships, and pro bono work. Collectively, you've graduated from 181 colleges and universities, have pursued 71 different academic majors. 36 of you have earned postgraduate degrees, including masters, MBAs, MFAs, and PhDs. Listen to some of the fascinating examples of work that you've done. One of you performed an analysis of high-speed propulsive systems in cetaceans. These are marine mammals like whales and dolphins, which I looked up today. Another studied the history of affirmative action in higher education through both feminist and critical race theory perspectives. One of you studied energy uses and payment burden through demographic and geospatial data analytics for the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability. Another's academic work explored missions, information economies, and knowledge production in author Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, An Arrow of God. And one of you worked on developing policy solutions for addressing LGBTQ youth homelessness in the United States. Many of you come to Brooklyn having already achieved career success. You've held such impressive positions as being an intensive care physician at a New York City hospital managing ICU patients at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, managing director of emerging market sales at Cantor Fitzgerald, the president and co-founder of an independent online pharmacy verification and drug price comparison company used as a resource to provide critical information to uninsured and underinsured populations, director of local and state legislative affairs at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, vice president of new show development at Gimlet Media and Spotify, and associate producer of 60 Minutes for CBS News. You're not only intellectually and professionally impressive, you're accomplished artists and athletes. Let's call it Brooklyn Law's Got Talent. Among you today are several professional and varsity athletes, opera singers, French horn, trumpet, and ukulele players, a professional jazz and rock drummer, violinists, guitarists, composers, and songwriters, a Tony Award-winning musical producer, professional ballerinas, photographers, an Armenian folk dancer, poets, a portrait painter, theater and television actors, marathoners, and students of Taekwondo. Public service and working for the greater good have been part of Brooklyn Law School's mission since our founding more than a century ago. Now you will carry on and add to this tradition. Many of you have done truly inspiring volunteer work to give back to your communities in the world already, including assisting nonprofits promoting literacy and education for underserved populations, founding an advocacy organization seeking to expand access to life-saving medications, serving as court-appointed special advocates for abused or neglected children, teaching English to adult ESL students in their communities, acting as volunteer coordinator for a Texas nonprofit connecting displaced immigrants with essential resources, supporting Callers as a helpline volunteer for the National Eating Disorders Association, among many other examples. We look forward to seeing you all apply this dedication and compassion as law students and in your future careers as lawyers. Others have worked for public interest and government organizations, including a safety engineer for the United States Department of Labor, deputy director for nonprofit policy and engagement at the New York State Executive Chamber, a senior litigation paralegal for the ACLU Immigrants' Rights Project, a community liaison for the Office of External Affairs at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and several teachers and tutors in AmeriCorps programs all across the country. I've also noticed that many of you are former bartenders, mixologists, sommeliers, and nightlife promoters. I've made a list of your names for the faculty in case one of us needs to hire someone. So many stories, experiences, and talents. All in all, we are astonished by this extraordinary group of students who have traveled so many different paths to arrive at this singular point tonight. But who is who? You have the next 1 to 4 years to figure it out as you become classmates, lifelong friends, and members of our incredible Brooklyn Law School community. So I'm going to turn it over to another room.
Hi, I'm Ted Janger, and it's my and I'm here to do two things. One, to welcome this room to Brooklyn Law School, and to say, oh my goodness, this is the most people I've seen in a room in a year and a half. I think this is exciting. Okay, my second job is to introduce the faculty speaker for the evening, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce to you today's faculty speaker, Neil Cohen, the Jeffrey Forcelli Professor of Law. It's what I get to also do is tell you something about Neil while telling you something about the law school in the process. Neil is the perfect person to welcome you all to Brooklyn Law School. Now, I may be a bit biased because since I arrived at Brooklyn Law School, Neil has been the perfect colleague, teacher, mentor, and friend. And I get to say this and he can't interrupt me. But I don't think my experience is unique. As I will explain, this is how and why I think Neil embodies what is really special, or many of the things that are really special about this place. So Brooklyn Law School, in a microcosm, is a school, a community, and an institution that seeks to improve the profession. And Neil does all of these things with a quiet modesty that I might add is rather unusual in a law professor. Neil teaches contracts, but he doesn't just teach contracts. He's one of the co-authors on the Farnsworth Contract Casebook, which is perhaps the leading casebook in the country. I don't use it, but it's one of the leading case books. He was the reporter for Article 1 of the Uniform Commercial Code, as well as serving on the somewhat ill-fated drafting committee for revised Article 2 of the Uniform Commercial Code. He currently sits on the permanent, by the way, you'll all know what the Uniform Commercial Code is soon enough, on the permanent editorial board for the UCC, which is the group of people who keep this critically important statute up to date and advise the world, quite frankly, on how to resolve interpretive problems as they come up. He also teaches commercial law, but he doesn't just teach commercial law. He was on the drafting committee for Article 9, the secured credit chapter of the Uniform Commercial Code. But not just in the US, his expertise in this area is international. He has served for years as one of the US delegates to the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, as they've prepared legislative guides on and a model law to harmonize the law of secured credit, not exactly on the US model, close, maybe more Canadian a little bit. Anyway, he is, and that's not all, he is curious beyond these areas, writing articles on medical malpractice with our colleague Aaron Twersky, probability theory, and baseball law. Now here's the thing. This list of achievements is long, but what's not obvious is it's not just that he's done a lot of things, but how central he has been to each of these projects. It's been my pleasure, and it's to sit as a fly on the wall several times, both at the ALI and at UNCITRAL, to see he's the most trusted man in the room, both for stating the law, for drafting legislative language, and for resolving disputes. He's not just a superb teacher, technician, and draftsman. He is also, and I hear this from people all over the country who are involved in these processes, universally regarded as an honest broker. So in this regard, Neil is not just a teacher, but he models what we hope our faculty and students will do and be. He's careful, thoughtful, and he tries to make the law and the place better. Now, for all of my time at Brooklyn Law School, Neil has been central to this place. And it's impossible for me to imagine, I'm going to let you in on, it's not exactly a secret, but he's been making noises about retiring. Now, this is your first assignment as new law students at Brooklyn Law School. I task you with talking him out of it. Okay? In the meantime, however, listen carefully to what he has to say, and I give you Neil Cohen.
Ted is a hard act to follow. As the old saying goes, I wish my parents had been here to hear Ted speak, because my father would have appreciated it, my mother would have believed it. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight, although of course at my age and in this age, it's a pleasure to be anywhere. But here is where I want to be, and here is where I am. And I have a very important task tonight. I'm here tonight to welcome you to the study of law on behalf of the faculty of Brooklyn Law School. Now, faculty is a collective noun, a single word connoting a group of individuals. Yet the faculty here at BLS, like at many law schools, is a diverse bunch with differing views of the nature and function of law, the best ways to use it to improve society, the best ways to learn it and impart it to others. So purporting to speak on behalf of the faculty can be dangerous. But I can confidently tell you that each of us that together comprise that collective noun will do our level best to educate you, to nurture you, and to support you. We may approach these responsibilities differently, but we're united in our commitment to you. I'm also here to tell you that there's never been a better time than now to become a lawyer. And there's never been a better time to do so here at BLS. Creating a modern, post-COVID, we hope, society while at the same time making sure that the law does well and appropriately the everyday tasks to which it's been assigned, is a daunting but exhilarating task. Whether one's career goal is to change the law, understand the law, utilize law to maximize welfare of clients, teach the law, or make and apply the law. After all, many of you will have electoral victories in your future or have black robes in your wardrobe someday. The world is evolving, we are evolving, and law is evolving. And there's no better place to be than in the profession that develops and applies the ground rules of a free society. When I was asked to give this talk, I was told that one of the reasons is that I bring a considerable amount of perspective to the task. Now, perspective is a funny word in this context. I think it has something to do with hair color and wrinkles. And no one ever accused me of having perspective when I had dark brown hair and a full beard. So I guess I bring some perspective to tonight's task, which in this context probably means that I can see as much of my professional career in the rear view mirror as through the windshield. So with that perspective, continuing forward while at the same time being mindful of the adventures and misadventures of the past, here are a few bits of advice. And remember, the value of advice is not in following it, but rather in taking it into account in making your own decisions. First of all, make and keep friends. The friends you make in a law school will be friends the rest of your life. Not only is there great value in friendship, but your law school friends will be particular sources of professional support and guidance throughout your legal career. You won't know the answer to every question you face and the best approach to every problem of a client that lands in your lap, and your friends and colleagues can be a great resource. Second, be mindful of the importance of the first year of law school. This first portion of law school contains the basic building blocks of the laws that regulate society and resolve disputes that arise in it: contracts, property, torts, civil procedure, criminal law, constitutional law, as well as the basic skills of effective legal research and writing. We all rely on those basic building blocks, whether we realize it or not, and it's important to master them both for their substantive content and for their role in underpinning the more narrowly focused topics you'll study as you go through law school. But they're also important, because first year is the time when many law students are first exposed to most of these areas, the existence of which they are often previously unaware of. And in being exposed, they learn that these areas can be quite interesting. So no matter how sure you may be about what you want to do with your law degree and which topics interest you and which topics are merely to be endured, I recommend that you keep an open mind. What appears uninteresting from a distance can be fascinating and stimulating when seen close up. Third, remember that law involves not only deductive reasoning, but also inductive reasoning. You're all very good at deductive reasoning, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And much of legal study involves deductive reasoning, starting with a principle or a rule and applying it to specific facts. But that isn't the only type of reasoning that lawyers need to master. Rather, inductive reasoning, observing a number of data points and identifying a principle that explains them, is a key part of the development of American law and of the toolkit for lawyers. Remember that both types of reasoning are important. But fourth, and perhaps most important, be aware that a critical role of law school is to create a foundation for your future growth and knowledge. Not only is it impossible to learn in 3 years what you'll need to know to represent clients and causes for the next 40 to 50 years, but much of what you'll need to master in order to practice law well hasn't yet even been invented or foreseen. I've spent much of the last several years contributing to the development of legal rules to govern commerce in digital data and in intangible, non-transparent electronic pieces of value like cryptocurrencies that may replace or supplement what we now think of as money. Just saying those words to me many decades ago when I entered law school, or 3 years later when I graduated, would have elicited a blank stare. Nothing in my 3 years of law school prepared me for this. And everything in my 3 years of law school prepared me for this, because law school helped me create the template for lifelong learning and adaptation to the problems and issues of a complicated and never complacent society. You'll best be prepared for the future if you treat your years here as the beginning of lifelong learning and not its culmination. So, welcome to law school. Welcome to Brooklyn Law School. Welcome to the study of law, the practice of law, and the making of law. 40 plus years from now, when you're looking back, the world will have been a better place because of the contributions of you and your classmates. And that process starts tonight. I look forward to participating in the start of your career. We'll next hear from Euless Boyd, our Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid. Dean Boyd is live in the Sabatnik Center. Euless, it's all yours.
So I'm just going to assume that I can be heard in the other rooms. I too have two tasks. The first is to add my own voice to those welcoming you this evening. As the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid, it is my team that undertook the extraordinary honor of evaluating every one of the nearly 4,500 applicants to arrive at this extraordinary class. Yours is the 7th entering class I've had the privilege of admitting. I joined the law school in 2015, and each year I've been able to say that this is the strongest class, both in terms of the depth and breadth of achievement of the applicant pool and of the admits that I've ever seen. And I'm looking for great things from you. My second task is to introduce to you our alumni speaker for the evening, Alfonso Grant Jr., Brooklyn Law School, class of 1998. He's a managing director of Morgan Stanley and currently serves as the head of the Global Litigation Group's Special Investigation Unit for Institutional Securities and Investment Management, which is responsible for conducting internal investigations of employee business conduct violations across the firm's several business units and representing the firm in various regulatory and criminal matters. Alfonso also serves as a member of the Legal and Compliance Division's Diversity Steering Committee. Since January of 2012, Alfonso has served as an adjunct professor at Benjamin Cardozo School of Law, where he teaches trial advocacy. But we will not hold that against him tonight. Alfonso's extraordinary career includes serving as a commissioner on the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board, as litigation special counsel and director of diversity initiatives at Sullivan and Cromwell, and as an assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York, where he investigated and prosecuted some of the most sophisticated and complex criminal offenses, among them money laundering, tax fraud, government fraud and corruption, terrorism, and racketeering. Alfonso is a founding member of the Association for Law Firm Diversity Professionals and was named the 2021 Trailblazer of the Year by the Metropolitan Black Bar Association in recognition of his service and commitment to the community and the legal profession. Please welcome Alfonso Grant Jr.
I'm going to take this off. I am fully vaccinated, so hopefully that'll alleviate some concerns, but I know you will not be able to hear me with this on. First, let me say good evening. Good evening to Dean Cahill, Dean Boyd, faculty, staff, and most importantly, to you guys, who in 3 or 4 years, I will have the privilege of calling you fellow alumni and fellow practicing attorneys. Congratulations and welcome. I want to take a minute though and just take this in. I'm very excited to be here. It's been over 2 years since I've spoken to an audience live. And so I definitely want to take this in, but also I want to borrow some of your energy, right? Because I remember being in your seat in 1995 and I remember my heart racing, right? I remember that eagerness, that cheerful eagerness, ready to get going. I also remember the responsibilities that came with being the first in my family to get this far, to get to this level. and trying to get to the next stage. So all the anxieties and the fears that were coupled with that. But I also remember the support that I got from my colleagues in the same setting. And it started with just simple introductions to the people that sat next to me. And that began my foray at Brooklyn Law School, my interactions. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm only going to speak for a few minutes, so don't worry when I say we're going to talk about it. But I want to talk a little bit about how important the relationship building piece is. And I think it's a prerequisite for you guys to be successful here. So let me say this, you guys look good. Energy seems good. So that's a good start. Goes without saying that you guys are about to embark upon an amazing journey. One that is going to be intellectually and emotionally challenging, but it will also be intellectually and emotionally rewarding if you do it right. What I have found in my 20 plus years of practice is that you are beginning on your journey in a profession that is one of the most supportive in the world. And Brooklyn Law School, and I think many will agree with me, it's a law school that really supports that ethos of supporting young lawyers, teaching them how to be practical, good lawyers, and teaching them the importance of them having an impact on their community and society as a whole. Our profession, folks, despite what you may have heard in movies and other fake forms of news, is a professional, honorable one. You will be called upon to be zealous advocates and counselors to your clients, whomever they are, wherever you find them, whatever they do. And the expectation and demand of you will be that you do so with integrity and empathy. The times that we live in today requires such lawyers more so than ever because of the social injustices, the political chaos, if you will, the health and environmental crises, and the effects of such that seemingly are unraveling our society. But make no mistake, your generation will be called upon to help fix our society. If you look at the history of this country and of the world, lawyers are always in the middle of social change. We are needed, and you are needed more so than ever. And I think that your generation is best suited for it because unlike the generations before you, you guys are much more open and tolerant to difference and change. You carry less of the prejudices and biases of the past. And you are more inclusive and empathetic to those of different backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives. And folks, we need that. We need that more than ever. And we need you to be successful in this endeavor. And for that reason, I have two suggestions for you. First, I want you guys to think of yourself not just as law students, but as apprentices or apprentice lawyers. Maybe semantics to some, but I think it's important for your mindset. The student to me is more of a receiving sort of position, but an apprentice applies someone that is working towards obtaining a trade, a craft, right? And developing that craft. And that is in essence what you are doing right here, right now. Think of yourself and carry yourself like lawyers. Approach the problems, the interactions, everything that you do that relates to your law school experience, your externships, your internships as a professional. Think of yourself as that apprentice, striving to be a master in a profession. Secondly, I want you guys to embrace a new goal. If you're here, that means you're one of the best and the brightest, without saying. You've worked very hard to get here. I know there's a few of you guys that worked less hard. Things came a little bit easier to you. That's fine. but we all have our challenges. But you are the best and the brightest. And I need you guys to look at a new goal. It's all right to have sub goals, like I want to get an A in this class, I want to be in the top 10% of my class, I want to work at a big law firm, whatever it is that you want to do. I want to help people, I want to be a prosecutor, I want to be a legal defender, whatever. But your goal should be to master your craft. To master your craft. It's the only way to be successful in what we do. Any successful lawyer will tell you that. And so now when you look at what I said about the apprenticeship relationship, I think you understand why I want your mindset to be like that, because your goal is to learn from the experts, your professors, the staff here, the lawyers that you will be working with over the next 10 to 15 years of your career, with the goal of being a master yourself, to being an expert yourself. That is the goal. That is what you're being trained to do. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So right then and there, you should understand that this experience is a lot different than undergrads and graduate school. It's more like you're pursuing that PhD. There's a reason why we are Juris Doctorates. You've got to be engaged in this stuff to really learn it, to really understand it. And so I want you guys to have that new goal. And I think it makes sense, right? Any apprentice, that's what you want to be. So why wouldn't that be your goal? Now, to accomplish that goal, there's three things I want to talk to you about. One, first, you have to commit to learning and studying the law. And I'm talking about commit. You got to roll your sleeves up, get in there and learn this stuff. And it's not all just about the syllabus that you get from your professor. It's not all about what the professor tells you to read. There's so many more things that you need to learn that are going to come from your conversations and your interactions with your professors, with the faculty, and most importantly, with your colleagues. So many things that I learned coming into law school that I had no clue about, and it was simply from engaging in conversation with my colleagues. Second, you have to commit to understanding and developing your resources. And when I talk about resources, I'm specifically talking again about personal relationships, and we'll come back to that. And third, you must commit to giving back, to sharing what you have learned, and supporting your colleagues, not only the ones seated in this room, but the ones that will come after you and the ones that have already gone before you. The thing that I'm most proud about in this profession is that it is a circle of giving, production, giving, sharing. You will find that it is rare in our field for a lawyer to be called on to invent a new wheel. Wheels have already been invented. You will be tasked to maybe come up with a longer spoke or to add a spoke to that wheel. But what I'm getting at is that everything that you do is based on something that went before. They're building blocks before. And in order to understand how to be successful going forward, you've got to understand those building blocks. And that's what this process is all about. It's teaching you the substantive, but it's teaching you the importance of your resources, your relationships. And as I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, this is one of the most supportive professions in the world because it has created a system of resources for you. Now, I'm just going to focus on the latter two, commitment to understanding and developing resources. I once heard a very successful lawyer that I look up to this day say that law is not practiced in a vacuum. Everything that lawyer was able to accomplish in his life, he attributed to his colleagues. Because everything that he learned, someone was willing to teach him. Someone was willing to share information with him, point him in the right direction. And that was his mantra. Law is not practiced in a vacuum. And he used that to justify his approach of developing numerous relationships with folks, but also giving back to folks to further develop that circle. And one of the most successful lawyers that I know. I'll tell you a quick story of one of my most memorable and I think rewarding experiences here at Brooklyn Law School. We were taking constitutional law, and we had a midterm coming up, and there was a concept that a lot of folks didn't really get. And it seemed like we were all someplace throughout the library in our various study groups, but we were all part of one section. There was like 100 people in our section, and we were a pretty tight section. Everybody knew each other, everyone interacted, everybody shared information. So it started in my study group. There was an issue that came up, concept, we had no idea. 5 people around the table had no idea. So we went to another colleague's room. Make a long story short, we went to like 8 different rooms. In total, we went to like 50 different people in the class. No one got this concept. And then someone said, go check with so-and-so. I can't remember her name. Maybe her name was Kim. Let's call her Kim. And we went and found Kim in her study group. And Kim knew the answer to it. And Kim knew the answer because she had went to the professor and interacted with the professor, had a conversation with the professor. And the thing about that whole experience, and I don't think I could ever do justice to it, but I hope you're with me, is if you could just see 50 people walking around this library hunting for an answer together, right? And finally finding it in one of your colleagues who was willing to share that, that's powerful. That's what we do as lawyers. We share information to make us better. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you're gonna have to write your law school exam. You're gonna have to study and memorize all your stuff. But the help that you get from your colleagues is invaluable to that process. That's what Dean Boyd meant when he said you guys were selected to be this class. You were selected because of your combined experiences and how you will support and develop each other and carry forth that torch that is so necessary in our profession. Third point, which I think is probably the most important point, is committing to giving back. Giving back in the form of sharing what you have learned and supporting your colleagues. Absolutely no downside to this. I just explained that to you, right? At the end of the day, you've got to memorize your stuff. You've got to be prepared. You've got to write your exam. But the upside to it is, and I'm gonna get a little spiritual here, philosophical, I guess, but I think the fundamental principle is the way the universe works. You know, you help others, you put it out there, it's going to come back to you. And I'm not saying this based on theory. I live it, I know it, this is what I do. And it starts here. If you think that you can be successful in law school, or even successful in the practice of law on your own in a vacuum, it ain't gonna happen. I'm pretty sure of that. But if you want to be successful, if you want to be good lawyers, then you need to know how to develop your relationships with your colleagues and maintain those relationships. Everything that I learned came from conversations that I had with colleagues or faculty members. Came into law school, had no clue about the big law firms or what it took to get in there. Came into law school, had no idea about clerkships and how important they were, and they would be in my career development. All these things I learned by just having to talk to colleagues, sharing information. I want to tell you another quick story. When I first got to Brooklyn, maybe it was like the first week, I was still trying to sort out books that you need and the syllabus and all those things. And I got into the elevator, and there was a woman in the elevator, and I said hello to her and I introduced myself. I don't know why, right? But she was receptive and we started to have a conversation. And make a long story short, she turned out to be I think she was 2L. She was on law review and had taken I think it was civil procedure class that I was currently taking with the same professor. And she basically told me, come downstairs with her. I was on my way upstairs, we both were. She reversed course and said, come downstairs to her. And we went across the street to where the old law review and journal offices used to be, to her locker over there. and she was going to give me the book that I needed. And she also gave me books. She gave me study guides. She told me how to study for this class, the support books, that manuals. I don't know if you guys still use that stuff, Gilbert, all of these things, the ones that work perfectly with this course. Wouldn't have known this if I didn't speak to this woman, right? If she didn't reciprocate, if she didn't understand the obligation of giving back because someone had helped her. And then she gave me an outline for the class. And she got an A. The one thing I did know coming in is that if you get an outline from somebody, make sure it's an A outline. So I was very happy to receive this thing. And I remember the next day or two, I reached out to her because she gave me her number. She said, if you need anything, call me up. And I said to her, hey, Jen, I remember her name, Jen. Can I give this outline to a couple of my friends in my study group? And she said, absolutely. That's up to your discretion. And we talked a little bit about that. And what she said to me was profound. She's like, look, there's nothing wrong with getting an outline and using that outline to help you understand and interpret the things that you're learning in this particular class. But she said, if you want to do well, you should do your own outline. That way you can really absorb the information. And then secondly, it's all right to share it with others. Because from what I said before, at the end of the day, everybody's got to know their stuff, and everybody individually has to write their own exams, take their own exams. But in terms of helping each other get there, that's what this is all about. And this is how the practice of law is done outside of here. And that's something that I want you guys to take with you from this moment on. Your experience as professionals in our great profession will in part have a lot to do with a handful of the colleagues that you meet here today. They will remain in your circle for the rest of your career. One of my best friends in the world, I met here. African-American kid from the Caribbean, first generation. First in my family to get a professional degree, and a Jewish kid from Brooklyn, right? His dad was a lawyer, but we had so much in common, and we would never have known that if we didn't interact with each other. And now, we have kids, we hang out together. It's an amazing story. Did closing on my house. There's so many things that I got out of this relationship and that he got out of this relationship that we would have never done if we didn't interact with each other. Now, the biggest impediment to you along this journey is going to be overcoming your fears and stepping outside your comfort zone. Every day in our profession brings new issues, new problems that need to be solved, and many are complex. And when confronted with them, there are times where you're going to feel like putting your head down, hoping that no one sees you, not raising your hand, ducking, hoping someone else picks it up. You're going to feel like running sometimes. You're going to feel like giving up. But I'm here to tell you that fear, right, which I've learned a couple years ago, stands for, in a positive way, false evidence of things appearing real. False evidence of things appearing real have no basis in this equation here. Because you have the equalizer, and that equalizer is hard work. There's always going to be someone in a room that's smarter than you. There's always going to be someone in a room that's had a different experience or is more knowledgeable about something or just intuitively does something better than you. But you will never let anybody in that room outwork you. And you must hold on to that. Because if you don't, that fear is going to take over and it's going to cut your legs out from under you. Because don't get it twisted. We're in a profession where some of the smartest and brightest people are. We're in a profession that requires you to be right most of the time, or your clients ain't coming back. It is a high stress environment. But with these tips, hopefully, and understanding what you're really focused on trying to accomplish, I think that you'll accomplish those goals. Now, I know I'm running over time, so let me wrap up by just saying a couple things. One, take care of your physical and your mental. We're at a different time in this society, in this world, where we can talk about the mental aspects of things. So let's be real. This is a stressful profession. Not necessarily more stressful than any other professional endeavor, but it's stressful. And therefore, you have to take care of yourself physically and mentally. Work it into your schedule, your routine, where you get an hour of exercise 4 or 5 times a day. Your mental piece, if you're in therapy now, stick with your therapist. Don't miss your sessions. If you're thinking about going to therapy, set it up, do it. If you feel like you need therapy, talk to someone and do it. Got to take care of this in your physical, or you're not going to be able to be successful in law. Secondly, your family, your support systems outside of the law school, you have to rely on them, but you have to educate them and inform them what you're actually doing here. I can tell you stories of people that relationships broke up, family members not talking to them because they thought that the individual, the law student, the apprentice lawyer, was ignoring them, right? Or not engaged with them anymore. They don't have a clue what you guys are about to go through. For you to be successful, you're going to have to put some hours in. So you're not going to be available to hang out and do all the things you did. But the thing that I found is that family and friends are extremely supportive. You just have to let them know, let them in on the loop of what's happening here. So I will give you the advice that was given to me by my Civ Pro professor on the very first day. He was like, go home and have a conversation with your significant others, your family, your wife, and let them know. And I can tell you, when I started law school in '95, I had just gotten married. And my wife to this day thanks me for having that conversation with her. Because if I didn't, she would not have understood why every night I closed down the library. I had to do that. That was my way of working hard to overcome whatever fears I had, whatever anxieties I had. She wouldn't have understood why weekends I wasn't able to go out and drink and hang out and go see movies all the time like we used to do. But she was extremely supportive, and she's watching right now, and I would be remiss, also in very big trouble, if I didn't mention her. And thank you. Thank you, Isis. But I want to encourage you guys to do that. You're going to need that support. So in closing, class of 2001, I wish you all the luck in the world. We need you guys to do this. You're in a great law school, one that has been on the vanguard of supporting and creating processes that make good lawyers better. Clinical program, writing programs that were the first of their kind. You're at a great place to learn to be great lawyers. Take advantage of it. Wish you best of luck, guys. Take care.
I wish I had more time to reflect and talk with you about how extraordinary that was. All I'll say is that Alfonso is an example of the kind of engaged alumni network that we have here. Having the opportunity to have people like him come back and engage with our students, it's really a critical part of the education that you'll receive here. And I think we should thank him one more time. Well, my last task is to introduce the Dean of the Law School, who will close the show for us. Dean Michael Cahill is the president, Dean and Joseph Correa Professor of Law here at Brooklyn Law School. From 2003 to 2016, Dean Cahill taught as a member of our faculty. His scholarship focuses on criminal law and health law and policy. He served as Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Vice Dean, and in 2016 was named Co-Dean of Rutgers Law School. In 2019, his colleagues here and the Board of Trustees of the Law School were absolutely delighted to appoint him dean and welcome him home. And Dean Cahill will now welcome each and every one of you to our new community. Dean Cahill.
Julius, hello and welcome everyone. It is so exciting to be here to greet you in person. I am particularly impressed at how many of you have already gotten back into the habit of wearing actual pants. Well done, you should be proud. You should be proud they fit. Good job, you guys are ready. This is my third convocation back here as Dean of Brooklyn Law School, and it is fair to say that they have all been different from each other. There have been a lot of changes over the last couple of years, and we look forward to a year when there will be a lot of changes back to the way things were before. Even as we recognize that some things will have to be gradual, and even as we also choose to retain some positive and useful changes brought on by our experiences of the last 18 months or so. But amid all of the change, much about legal education has remained the same. In particular, even as we met at a distance and talked across screens, and even now as we meet closer together but talk through masks, our educational model has retained its fundamentally interactive nature. You will find, as many of you have likely already heard, that law school is not a matter of attending a series of lectures where the professor stands at the front of the room and does all the talking, like tonight. Thank goodness that that is so. Rather, law schools typically proceed through ongoing dialogues between the teacher and the students. Often that dialogue takes the form of the teacher asking a series of questions that may be specific questions about the particular details of a case or a law, or maybe broader questions about the general rules that we have or should have for particular situations. This is often described as the Socratic Method. And it has a bit of a bad reputation, or at least a reputation for being harsh. Media depictions of law school like to present arrogant, self-satisfied professors who use this so-called Socratic questioning as a club to browbeat students into admitting how little they know or how little they understand. But that's not the way it has to be, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. Philosophers also use another term to describe the so-called Socratic method, a term that Socrates used himself. They call it the Mayutic Method. You learned a word today, Mayutic. Look it up later, it's a great Scrabble word, lots of vowels. Mayutic comes from the Greek word for a midwife, someone who assists with childbirth. Socrates thought of himself as an intellectual midwife who helped with the birth of ideas and knowledge. In that sense, he saw himself as in some way carrying on a family tradition, as his own mother was an actual midwife. Now, as someone who attended the births of my own two children, I don't plan on getting too detailed or graphic in elaborating this metaphor, but I think the analogy captures something useful and instructive. When Socrates was engaged in this Mayutic process with someone else, importantly, not described as a student, but rather as an interlocutor, someone with whom he was having a conversation. When he did that, he wasn't telling his interlocutor how to understand a concept like friendship or courage. He was asking that person questions as a means of drawing out thoughts, ideas, and even knowledge that were already lurking somewhere within that person. In similar fashion, our classes are not meant to provide a stage for the teacher to put knowledge into your head. Rather, they're a forum for a shared conversation about a number of particular things, but always with the goal of enabling the professor and her interlocutors and the audience to collectively arrive at a better shared understanding of something. In this case, something we might call justice. And as Alfonso said when he was talking about mastering your craft, these conversations also provide a shared opportunity to develop and strengthen something that we might call a form of wisdom. Wisdom not being an innate character trait, but a kind of skill or a tool that we learn and cultivate and train ourselves to have and to use. A way of seeing things, a way of asking your own questions, coming up with your own answers. You have that within you. We are here to help it develop and grow. Even more generally, I hope this sense that, like midwives, we serve as caregivers to offer service and support is something you will experience in your interactions throughout our community, not only with faculty in the classroom, with our staff, our administrators, and with each other. We are here to create an environment of inclusion, tolerance, mutual respect, and encouragement. And when I say we, that includes you. We rely on you to help build that environment and to understand our shared responsibility to think about and support and protect the community as a whole, as well as each of its members. Embodying that shared commitment is also an aspect of your educational experience. It's part of the process of becoming a lawyer who will need to serve clients and offer them sympathy and support. And I must say, your predecessors, previous students who once sat where you sit now, some of them on Zoom, serve as a model for you to emulate in this regard, and also as another source of care and support for you. Around this time last year, even as they were dealing with various personal and professional obligations at the height of the pandemic, a group of students, some but not all of whom have now graduated, affirmatively and proactively reached out to me and other administrators because they wanted to revamp and overhaul our system of peer-to-peer student advising. This was and is a massive project and a major commitment they took on, even while recognizing it would not benefit themselves, but rather those who followed, namely you. These are people who understand a lawyer's professional calling to service. Today, you join them. Join us. We are delighted to have you. Welcome to the law. Welcome to Brooklyn Law School. I don't know if anybody says the thing is over, but the thing is over. Congratulations. All collectively survived day 0 of law school. Downhill from here.